and thank you so much for joining me. Now today I'm doing a mega pack. This is actually the Love from Lizi Dressmakers Delight Mega Pack, and it's available at the Love from Lizi shop. I'll leave links below in case you're interested and want to check it out. This is a part of Lizi's March release, which is neat. Now I'm going to show you what's in it. You get some cardstock. These are all pearlescent cardstocks, and they're A4 size. A4 size is standard UK size, so it's a little bit longer and a little bit less short, less wide than US standard size. But they have a beautiful sheen to them, and you get 5 of them. And then you get tons of pattern papers. The ones I'm going to show you first are double-sided, and these are large 8x8 sheets. This cardstock is actually well, I call it cardstock, but it's pattern paper, but it's very thick. A lot of unique and very, I want to say sultry kind of colors, very muted dark colors. But those are your double-sided there. And then you get a few sheets of the single-sided, and you get 2 of each of these. You can see the patterns on there are very pretty. And then you also get a few specialty cardstock. This one has a real pretty pearlescence to it. You get 2 of these. And then this is another pearlescent, which has got a real pretty sheen on the back side too. So if you wanted to use the reverse side, you could. And then this pattern paper here is textured. It has like a canvas texture along with this floral pattern. And then you get 2 sheets of this pattern paper. So tons of papers. You won't run out, I promise. Now you get a actually this is a large stamp set. It's like a 9x6. I'm going to grab the pearlescent. I think you can see better. But you can see that Dressmakers Delight kind of fits the theme of this kit very well. It has a lot of sewing images, and it's a very vintage feel. You get buttons and a spool of thread, a pincushion, and a few borders, which is really nice. So that's your stamp set. And then also in this kit, you also get a die pack. This is neat because it has a frame that actually cuts out little polka dots on the edges. And then you have inserts for that frame. This one here has itty bitty hearts that you can punch out. And that goes right in the center of the frame. This has some cute little butterflies, and then this is a sentiment that says special day. And then this one says just for you. And then this one has a real pretty vase. So all of those fit on the inside there, so you could use it with the inside or out without. So we're just going to jump into card number 1. We're going to make 10 cards using this mega pack here. I'm going to cut down a piece of the graphite black pearlescent cardstock. Now this is going to be the length of my card base, but it's going to be a narrower. I'm also going to use this pattern paper here that's really pretty. Now I thought this would be neat to take a circle die and cut out some of those circles that are in that pattern paper. So I found one that was a little bit larger, but it's going to cut out those circles perfectly. So I'm going to cut out this one here, and then this circle. Just going to run that through my Big Shot. Now next I'm going to take a size smaller circle die and cut out the insides of those circles that we had cut out. That way when I place it back on top, you'll see some of that pearlescent cardstock behind it. I think it's going to look really pretty. Now to add a little bit of dimension, I'm going to go in with some dimensional adhesive and just place this panel in the center of the black one there. And then using my tape runner, I'm going to adhere the inside pieces of my circles. This would actually make a really great masculine card. So now the stamp set didn't come with any sentiments, and so I pulled in quite a few sentiments from my stash. I wanted to do some stamping. I wanted to use those little hat pins. At least I think they're hat pins that came in the stamp set. So I'm going to grab those and just ink them up with my Memento Tuxedo Black ink. It's alcohol friendly ink, and I'm going to just color those pins in with my alcohol markers, my Copic markers actually. But I skipped the coloring, and I also skipped the fussy cutting. I'm going to fussy cut those out. It wasn't too bad. I left a little bit of a white border because of the pin part. But there's my hat pins, and I used some really, some colors that kind of coordinated with that pattern paper. Now here's the sentiment I chose. It says, "So happy we're friends." I just stamped it on some white cardstock with VersaFine ink, and then I matted it with the graphite black pearlescent cardstock right behind it. Now I popped up the top parts of my little hat pins because they're going to go in the circle area, and then I used glue to secure the pin part. I'm going to add some dimensional adhesive behind my sentiment on one side, and then I'll just use my tape runner to adhere that. And again, the part where I added the dimensional adhesive, that's going to go on the inside part of the circle. So this way it just lays flat. Now I'm going to take this panel and tape this down directly to my card base. My card base for this card is a top folding A2 size card base, standard 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I did add a little bit of my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen to my hat pins, but that finishes off my first card. And you can see where you could easily make it a masculine card, minus the hat pins. Okay, now for card number 2, we're going to do a little bit of stamping here. I decided to use these really pretty scissors. I thought these were so neat. They're very vintage looking. And so we're just going to stamp those along with the little thimble. I'm going to use again my Memento ink, and I colored the thimble in with my gray Copics, and then I just colored in the scissors with some yellows and grays. And again, I'm going to fussy cut these out, and then I'm also going to color them in. So there's our images, and then for this sentiment, I pulled one from my stash that says "Friendships are sewn one stitch at a time." And so I thought, well, we'll bring in some stitching. This is a really long a stitch border. So this is actually great for scrapbooking too, because it's long enough. But I just placed it on my block, and I'm inking it up with my VersaFine ink. And I'm going to go along the edges of this little white panel that I had cut out, creating a nice little stitched border. Now originally I was going to use the white panel, but I didn't think it stood out well enough. So I decided to go into some oxide inks. I chose Wild Honey, and I'm just going to go over that entire panel there. And this wasn't Bristol Smooth cardstock, so it didn't blend as well as I wanted it to, but I think the outcome worked out fine. Now to dull down the color and give it a more vintage look, I decided to go in with my Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink, just around the edges. And the more I looked at it, the more it looked kind of like leather. So I'm just going to arrange my little scene, and then I'm going to actually pop everything up with some dimensional adhesive and place it on my little oxide ink panel. Once I have everything in its place, I'm going to pop the whole panel up with some foam tape, and then you can see I cut out a panel with a floral pattern paper. That's just going to go right in the center. And then this is going to go on again a A2 size card base. And then I'm just going to add a few dots of Simply White Nouveau Crystal Drops. And then that finishes off that card. Very vintagey looking. Now we're going to move along to card number 3. Card number 3, I wanted to use this lacy border here. And I was having a problem with it sticking to my block, but I finally got it down there. And then I'm going to ink it up real good with my Memento Rich Cocoa ink, and I'm just going to stamp it directly on my card base with to the left. Now I cut out a panel using this real pretty floral pattern paper. Now I decided to give it a little bit of an accent. I'm going to use the little mannequin here. I'm going to use my Versamark ink. I'm going to stamp it and then add some Nuvo Glacier White embossing powder. And I just think that's going to add a nice little accent to my card. Okay, now I needed a sentiment, but I wanted to use the frame, so I decided to use this pattern paper to cut it out. And I'm not going to add anything on the inside. What I ended up doing is I took a Hello sentiment die from my stash, and I cut that out, and I thought that would look really good on that pattern paper. Now to give it a little bit of color, I'm going to take the burnt orange pearlescent cardstock, and I'm going to cut out a 1/4 inch strip. I'm just going to trim it down a little bit, and then I do fishtail the end on the left side, and then I'm just going to attach that right below my hello, just to give it that card a little bit of color. I glued everything down with my multimedia mat, and once I had it down, I thought it needed, well, I guess I didn't glue it down yet, but it needed a little something else. So there's 2 little buttons in the stamp set. I decided to stamp those, added some white embossing powder, and I just fussy cut those out. Now here's where I glued everything together, added my little buttons, and then I'm going to flip this over and pop it up with some foam tape and place that on my card base. I did go in with a little bit of faux stitching on that burnt orange pearlescent cardstock, just kind of to tie everything together. And this was a very very different card for me to make, but I thought it turned out very vintagey. Okay, now we're going to move along to card number 4. Card number 4, I wanted to use this little butterfly image here, so I'm going to place that on the inside of the frame, and I'm going to cut out that entire little frame with the butterflies. And those butterflies were so dainty. I thought they were so pretty. But that's my little focal point. Now next I'm going to use this pattern paper. I think this is really nice little brown pattern. I'm going to trim down a panel that's going to leave me a little bit of a white border on my card base. Now for this sentiment, I pulled one from my stash that says "It's your special day." I'm just going to use my anti-static powder tool and then kind of position where I want my little butterflies to go. And then I'm going to stamp with the sentiment with some Versamark ink. Ooh. And then I'm going to use again my Nuvo Glacier White embossing powder over that. That way the white will just pop against that brown background. I'm just going to melt that, and I think that looks great. Now I wanted a little bit of color, so I'm going to grab a piece of white cardstock, and then using some of my oxide inks, I used Worn Lipstick, Cracked Pistachio, and I also used Wild Honey. Now to dull all 3 colors down, I decided to go on top of those with my Vintage Photo, and it kind of really dulls it down, and I think it goes better with my background. Now I'm going to take that little butterfly die, and I'm going to cut out 2 each of the butterflies, so I have 3 different colors. Now I wanted to add a little bit of dimension to my card, so I'm going to use real thin pieces of foam tape to the back of my panel here, and that's going to go in the center. There we go. I think those butterfly, that little scene is so dainty. I really like it. Now I'm just going to take my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive and adhere my butterflies. I'm just adding 1 glue dot to the center. I want to be able to fluff those little butterfly wings up. And then I've placed 3 on top and 3 on towards the bottom. We're going to add some foam tape behind this panel and place that in the center of my card base. And again, this is a standard A2 size card base, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then that finishes off that card. Now for card number 5, I'm going to use, my stamps keep falling off of my stamp sheet. I don't know if I'm handling it wrong or what, but I'm going to stamp the wooden spool 4 times. Now I'm going to color it in and fussy cut them out, but I'm not going to cut out the needles. I just want the thread spools, and I colored them in 4 different colors, and like I said, I just fussy cut those out. Next, I wanted to place those on a little background, so I'm going to use the burnt orange pearlescent cardstock. I'm just going to cut out 4 little rectangles that fit my spools perfectly. I'm going to add some dimensional adhesive behind each of those spools and place them right in the center, and then those are going to go square directly on my card base. And I decided to pop those up as well. So once I pop the spools up, I'm going to flip it over and add some foam tape behind it, and then pop those up right in the, well, towards the top center. Now for the sentiment for this card, I decided to use the same one I did earlier. It says, "Friendships are sewn 1 stitch at a time." And I'm just using my VersaFine ink for this. I'm going to stamp it towards the right, and then I did grab a button from my stash, and I threaded it with some natural jute cord. I just tied a bow, and I secured it right next to my sentiment with a glue dot. And then I think that looks simple but really pretty. And that's card number 5. Okay, now we're going to move along to card number 6. I created a card base using the real pretty oyster cream colored pearlescent, and now I'm going to cut out a panel with that same cardstock. This panel actually has scalloped edging, which makes it really dainty, and I like that. I'm going to use this pattern paper for my background. So I'm going to cut down the panel. This is going to leave me a little bit of a white pearlescent border. And then we're going to do some stamping. I wanted to stamp and fussy cut out this cute little pincushion. It's a very vintagey pincushion. I thought it was so pretty. So I colored it in and fussy cut it out. And then I decided to do a little bit more stamping, so I'm going to grab those scissors that was in the stamp set. And using my VersaFine ink, I'm going to stamp it on that pearlescent cardstock there. And then I decided to grab the little safety pin that was in there. I'm going to add that to the bottom there. I'm actually going to stamp this twice. I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to stamp it once and then flip it around and then stamp it again. Just kind of creating a little bit of a little focal point. I think that's going to look really nice there. But I need to stamp my sentiment. So for the sentiment for this card, I grabbed another one from my stash that says, "I love you so much." But the sew on it says is SEW. So I thought it went really cute. Now, I wanted to make my scissors a little bit longer. I wanted the point to go a little bit more towards the bottom of my panel. So I'm going to take a piece of Post-it tape, mask off my scissors, and I'm going to stamp the bottom portion of those scissors again, and then just kind of elongate my scissors. Well, here it looks like a hot mess, but when you cover it up, you really can't tell. So I thought that's a great way to make your scissors a little bit longer. But I'm going to pop up my little pincushion with some dimensional adhesive. And then I decided to grab some of the natural jute cord from my stash. I wanted something a little bit more. So I looped it 3 times and then gathered it in the center with a glue dot. And then taking another glue dot, I'm going to pick up my pincushion, place my twine right behind it, and then replace my pincushion. I think this just gives a little bit more interest to that little corner, and I like that a lot better. Now, I did smudge the ink right below my sentiment, and I used my sand eraser on the pearlescent. I would advise not to do that because I think I took off the pearl and it killed me. But so don't use your sand eraser on that pearlescent cardstock. But here's a close-up of it, my card. Okay, now enough. I'm rambling, so we're going to start off with card number 7. I wanted to use the reverse side of this pattern paper. It has a canvas-like texture, and I really like that. I grabbed the hello die from my stash, and I cut out the word hello. Now I wanted to add the center part of the O, and so to do that, I'm going to add a piece of acetate just with my tape runner. That way I can glue down the center part of the O, and then I can also pop up this panel. And this is how I do that. And I think that's going to look great. Now I'm going to add some foam tape behind this panel. And then this panel, I decided to cut out a card base with the forest green pearlescent cardstock. It's so pretty. It has like a gold accent to it. And so I just placed my hello right in the center. And then to accent my little panel, I'm going to cut out 3 of the flowers that are in the floral pattern paper. And then 1 more little leaf. I fussy cut those out, and then I also added some walnut stained distress ink around the edges to give it a little vintage feel. I'm going to use my multimedia mat and adhere this flower first, and then I'm going to use some dimensional adhesive and pop up the other 2 flowers. Just put it in the bottom corner in a little cluster, and I think that looks very simple but so pretty. This one, the leaf, I just decided to glue it down. Now for finishing touches, I did go in with some Nouveau glitter drops. These are Golden Sunset. Give it a little bit of shimmer, and that finishes that card. Now for card number 8, I'm going to use the Mannequin again. This time I'm going to stamp it with my VersaFine ink on a piece of white cardstock. I am going to eventually fussy cut that out, but I'm going to end up stamping the torso of the mannequin on this pattern paper here. And I'm going to fussy cut that out as well. We're going to do a little paper layering. Once I have that done, I'm going to adhere my little mannequin pattern paper directly on my white mannequin there. Now, I thought that looked nice, but I thought I wanted to look a little more girly girl, so I decided to take a strip of this pattern paper. I'm going to trim it down and then trim out a quarter strip. The quarter strip is going to go on the very top part of the skirt I'm going to make. Now to do this, I'm going to use my scoreboard here. I'm just going to score it every 1/4 inch, and this is just going to help me bend it and fold it, creating kind of like a pleated skirt. And I thought this was going to be so fun. Very easy to do. You could skip this part and just fold it, but I thought it would make it a little bit easier. Now I'm just going to fold it and kind of squinch it together, creating like a little pleated skirt. And I thought that would be fun to add to the bottom part of the skirt on the mannequin. I thought that's going to look really neat. I'm going to use my tape runner and then take that 1/4 inch strip and adhere that to the very top part of my skirt. I think that looks fun. Now I'm going to trim it down. It was a little bit too wide, so just kind of go at an angle and trim off the ends here. And eventually what I did do was take some Memento Tuxedo Black ink and I went over the top part of the skirt because just to make it flow better with the Memento on the top part of the shirt. I trimmed down this pattern paper, and this is going to go for my background on my card base. And then I also cut out a panel with white cardstock using a stitch rectangle die. This card was basically really simple. And you can see the belt of the skirt I just wrapped around the back. I'm going to add my little mannequin. And then I added my sentiment that says "So Happy." This was also one from my stash. I popped that panel up with foam tape and placed it right in the center. And that finishes this card. Okay, for card number 9, I'm going to cut out 2 of these frames. One frame without the centerpiece, and then one frame with the little vase. Just going to run that through my die cut machine. That way I'll have two frames. Now this one is without the centerpiece, and then the vase is with the little vase insert. Now I'm going to color in the vase frame with my Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink. And then I wanted to color in my second frame with Wild Honey, and then I wanted my flowers to be a little bit different color. So I decided just kind of measure with my hand where the flowers were, and then I'm going to go over that Wild Honey with some worn lipstick. And then I just use my multimedia mat, and we're going to stick both of those together. And I think that creates a very pretty frame. Now, I'm going to add a piece of foam tape behind here, and then I grabbed some pattern papers. I had grabbed 3 different kinds. I'm going to take this one and place that to the left of this pattern paper. And then I'm going to take the floral pattern paper and adhere that to my little frame, and then I'm going to pop that up with foam tape. I'm just going to remove the backing and place that on my card base. My card base is top folding, again, A2 size. And then I decided to add a little bit of interest by using my white gel pen and going around that floral pattern paper with it. And then I'm going to go in over the flowers with some Honey Gold Nouveau glitter drops. And that finishes off that card. No sentiment for that card. Now for my final card today, I want to use the sewing machine. So I'm going to ink it up with my VersaFine ink and stamp it on a piece of, this is actually watercolor cardstock, but I'm using the smooth side. Now to color in my sewing machine, I wanted to use some green ink. So this is actually Old Olive. No, Always Artichoke ink. I'm going to just color in my sewing machine using my water brush. Once that's done, we'll let that dry a little bit. And I did add a little bit of shimmer with my Spectrum Noir Sparkle pen. Now I grabbed a square die that would fit my sewing machine, and then using some more of the forest green pearlescent cardstock, I'm going to cut out a square window. Now I wanted to use that stitched stamp, so I added it to my acrylic block. I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool around my frame, and then I was going to use my Versamark ink, and then I was going to do some of that stitching around my window. So I decided to go in with my Post-it tapes and block off the edges. That way it's not they're not crisscrossing. But as I went to stamp my stitched border, it kept falling off my block, and so I decided to skip that step and we're going to do something else. So I cut out a frame with the soft gold pearlescent cardstock that was a size smaller, and I'm going to mat the inside of the forest green pearlescent cardstock. And I think this turned out, actually I think it looked really nice. Now I trimmed down the frame and added my sentiment. My sentiment for this card, it's a cute one, if I can remember. But it says, "Sewing mends the soul." I just placed my sewing machine right behind it and popped it up. And that's going to go there. I stamped my sentiment with Versamark and then used my white embossing powder to melt, to heat set that. Now I wanted to use the little lace border. I thought it fit the size of my sewing machine frame perfect. So I'm going to go back in with the Always Artichoke ink. But I didn't want this to fall off, so I'm using my tape runner to glue it down to my block. These stamps are actually not photopolymer. They are actually, what's the other word? they're not photopolymer. So I think that's why they weren't sticking to my block. But just nothing that my tape runner couldn't fix. But I just stamped the lace right below on my card base. I'm going to add my sewing machine on the top. And that finishes off card number 10. So here's a quick look at all 10 cards I made using the Mega Pack. This is the Dressmakers Delight Mega Pack. It's available at Love from Lizi's shop right now. And again, I'll leave links below in the description area if you're interested. I found this stamp set, this Mega Pack to be very versatile. As you could tell with all my cards, very versatile. So if you're interested, check it out. Thanks so much for stopping by, guys. I wish you a fantastic day, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.